All right, we are back live at AIHCE from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Bob Krell, founder and publisher of Healthy Indoors Magazine, joined by my co-host of the Indoor Environment Show, Mr. Don Weeks, who is the president of the Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance. And we have two more guests. So this is part of our continuing coverage for the next 3 days, counting today, I guess.
Right.
2 days after today. Something like that.
That's 3 days.
So it's exciting because this is the first time that Don and I have actually been in the same room and live stream. So this is it's a challenge, all the challenges of live technical broadcasts. But anyway, Don, I'll let you introduce our guests.
Yeah, we have two special guests from the Board of Global EHS Credentialing. First, we have Orlik Chong, who has served as the CEO of the BGC since June of 2014. He has a PhD in curriculum and instruction, computer-based instruction from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, as well as an AB in French and an MCS from the same university. Dr. Chong brings extensive experience in accreditation and management of nonprofit agencies, having served for 5 years as executive director of the Accreditation Council for Education in Nutrition and Dietetics. So, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'd like to, if you could, start with sharing some of your thoughts about the return of the AIHCE in Nashville.
I think it's fantastic. I'm really glad to see my colleagues here and my friends. It's good to meet with my board of directors in person again. And I'm really happy about the kinds of protocols that the AIH has put in place to help us against COVID. It's great.
Great. So our second guest is Tom Grumbles, who is the current chair of the BGC Board of Directors. He's also served as president of the Product Steward Society and is also a past president of the International Occupational Health Association, IOA. He was previously on the board of directors of, and was the president of the American Industrial Hygiene Association. He's a CIH, CSP, FAIH, and a CPPS, Certified Product Steward Professional. And he's been awarded the Product Stewardship Society's Distinguished Service Award and the AIHA's Distinguished Service Award. He retired after 40 years in the petrochemical industry, managing occupational hygiene, product stewardship, and occupational medicine programs. So, welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Good. I'm glad that you're here. As the chair of the BGC, could you give us some of the ideas of what your goals are to be during your time as chair that you'd like to accomplish?
Well, we have a very active year in front of us, as we'll talk about through this interview. BGC used to be just ABIH with one certification we managed. Over the last 5 years, we've grown. We have 3 other certifications from other professional groups that we now manage. So there's just a lot of work that needs to continue to go into integrating those groups and making sure that we have consistent standards and quality across all those certifications. So the work this year really is focused on getting the board to work with staff to get the exams for those certifications and other things updated, and continue to look at our marketing efforts to help people understand the value of these certifications.
So you mentioned new certifications. Could you give us a little bit of a rundown of what's new?
So when I came on the board, we did the CIH, Certified Industrial Hygienist, and it had been, I think, about 3 years, but Ulrich can correct me, since they had taken on the environmental certification, the QEP, and the QIP, EPI. And then we developed a brand new certification, which is the Certified Product Stewardship Professional, in close cooperation with the Product Stewardship Society. And then most recently, we took on the what used to be BAC, but it's the basically environmental and process safety auditing group, and we took on their certification program. So we've grown a lot in the last 5 years.
Would you care to add anything to that?
Yeah,
in terms of description.
I think it's really, we cover 3 major areas. So one of them is occupational health and safety, or industrial hygiene, environmental, and then EHS auditing. So we really look at people, places, things, and really the quality. So that's a lot of different areas.
It certainly is, yeah. So for new industrial hygienists, can you kind of take us through the certification process to attain a CIH?
Sure, and I want to be clear that the process that you go through for the CIH is really the same for all of our credentials. So the first thing is you have to have the appropriate academic preparation, so education. You have to have some practice experience. then you have to sit for an exam and pass the exam. So specifically for the CIH, you have to have basic science foundation, science, technology, education, and math. Then you also have to have industrial hygiene coursework, which you can get through an academic institution, or you can also get it through continuing education through places like AIHA. And then you have to have typically 4 years of practice in industrial hygiene at the professional level. And then finally just pass the exam, which, so it's really all those things are what give you the certification.
Is there an advantage to having a certain level of education, like a master's?
You know, typically we find that people who go through an academic education for industrial hygiene tend to perform a little bit better on the exam, but it's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement.
No.
Yeah. When I started, it was.
Yeah.
Of course, that was 40 something years ago.
Right.
So, Tom, for a new IH starting in the field, what are the benefits of attaining a credential such as the CIH?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot, but there's benefits to the individual and there's benefits to the companies they work for, and also probably most importantly, benefits to those employees that they're working to protect. The certification demonstrates competency. It demonstrates through continued education the desire to continue and stay current in the profession. At the bottom line, there have been multiple surveys done over the years that show the value of certification is real in terms of earning power. People want to have those people for what they bring to their organizations in terms of the competency, professionalism, and level of practice, which ultimately relates to a higher level of care for the employees that are in their stead.
So for somebody just starting out in this field, would you recommend that that individual obtain another credential such as the CPPS before applying for the CIH?
Not necessarily before applying, but one of the reasons we now have 4 certifications is there is a lot of overlap in the EHS field, and even process safety and what the auditors do. So we feel like we have the right suite of certifications under our umbrella that can help people do that if they choose to have more than one certification. I have 2. It's just the fact that certified industrial hygienists, many of them got into the product stewardship field based on their jobs they had. And so it's a good thing to do, but I don't think it's certainly anything that's necessary. It's just a matter of how aggressive people want to be
right.
in preparing for the test.
So, okay, good. So, Aura, can you describe what's the process of the development of exams for each of the credentials?
Sure. I think the people who develop certifications is a very, very tiny group of people when you think about different kinds of employment. But typically what we do is we gather together a group of subject matter experts. So in the case of the CIH, it would be industrial hygienists. And then they develop what the major kinds of knowledge and skills you have to have for practice as an industrial hygienist. And then when they have that list, they send that list to all the practitioners or a certain percentage of the practitioners, and that's globally. So we have practitioners in many countries around the world. And then those practitioners fill out the survey and tell us whether or not that list of knowledge and skills is correct. It comes back, and then the board of directors will validate and say, hey, yep, we agree, we like that, we like what you've done. And then we start developing exam questions around those specific topic areas.
And what have been some of the topic areas that you've seen sort of grown over the years?
You know, we haven't seen a lot of change in the overall blueprint, but we do see changes in the kinds of questions that we get. So and that's partly because of how we define industrial hygiene. Some professions define it as what people are doing. So for example, if we did it that way, we'd be actually making the scope of practice broader. It would include safety per se, specific in the sort of the BCSP standpoint. But we define it specifically as certain kinds of tasks, and so that causes the scope to really stay pretty fixed.
But I think a point there is we do have a schedule for updating, and we do a new JTA to see if the profession has changed, and if we need to change our programs. Many industrial hygienists are doing a lot more than they used to in terms of the whole EHS suite. So it's a rigorous process that Ulrich described. I've learned a lot since I came on the board how that works, and developing a new certification like the product stewardship, it was quite a learning experience for me on how rigorous it is, how much testing science there is that go into the questions, what's a good question, a bad question. But we do have a process to make sure we stay updated on what the certificate holders or the certification holders are actually doing, and does the certification reflect the practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of people think that exams are made by only by people, a select group of people, but in fact, our process is designed to take in input from all practitioners. All practitioners can help submit questions for the exam, and so if those exam questions are chosen, those practitioners also will get credit for their recertification.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
So, Tom, you mentioned JTA. Could you give us a little bit of description of what that is and how frequently it's conducted?
So JTA, job task analysis, we all love our initialisms and acronyms. And as Ulrich described, that's the first step. It's basically getting what we call SME, subject matter experts, that do it every day to sit together. Recently, it's been virtually sit together and talk about what do you do? What do you do every day?
Mm-hmm.
And through that process, then you get a task list or a function list that then ultimately is put into various buckets of practice and results in a job task analysis. Right now, we're on a schedule of 5 to 7 years to update those, but some of the professions may change faster than we think, like product stewardship, and we might have to do it more often.
Yep.
But right now, it's on about a 5 to 7 years. We just updated the industrial hygiene exam, starting with the new JTA, and we didn't find, as Ulrich said, a lot of change in the fundamental activities that then go into questions on an exam.
I see. Okay. So, you are like, what is the process of decertification? I know that that's not a great subject. Everybody
Yeah.
doesn't want to talk about it, but it does happen, and perhaps you could give us a little idea of how that process works.
Right. I mean, for decertification, they're typically you'd get some kind of notice or warning saying, hey, you're in trouble. You need to come to us and talk to us, and we'll try to help you get through what you need to get through. Disciplinary means that somebody has probably submitted some kind of complaint about your practice, that you're not practicing the way you should be practicing. So it's typically just an ethical complaint. And when that happens, the complaint gets reviewed by practitioners, and I'm involved in the process. And then we determine whether or not the complaint is valid. We do get a lot of complaints that aren't valid, that people have an axe to grind for whatever reason, or they didn't get the outcome that they wanted, or they don't understand the protocols or the hierarchies of like who's really responsible for this. They might think it's a CH, but it's really the owner of the company, of a builder or something like that. And then the committee, if that complaint is determined to be valid, then a committee of IH practitioners will review that complaint. We'll talk to the practitioner. We'll talk to the person submitting the complaint and determine whether that complaint's valid. And those people in that process have the right to appeal. The complainant and the respondent have a right to appeal. And if they appeal, then it will go to the board, a board committee for further adjudication. And that's where the buck stops. So if the board says it's an ethical violation, it is. If they say it's not, but there's no further appeal after that.
You mentioned it.
So I want to
go ahead,
add
please.
to that.
Sure.
So I didn't mention the code of ethics.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the
Yes.
benefits of these certifications, and we now have a common code of ethics for all of our certifications, is that you are bound to understand and uphold the code of ethics.
Yep.
Like most professions, we have a code. It's continuing education requires taking courses on ethics. So it's a key piece, I think, of demonstrate the professionalism of the certifications that we hold.
So I have a question for both of you. So how many certificates do you have globally in your various programs? You said you had 4 certification programs?
We have 3 different areas, but we have multiple certifications.
Okay.
And so I think total it's about 8,000 or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the total number.
Yeah. And so the majority of practitioners are in North America, so the U.S. and Canada. The second largest population is in Asia, so typically mainland China, and then we have a large population in the Middle East and the Caribbean as well.
So and that's one of the challenges, though, is we are global.
Sure.
And we write have to write questions that aren't U.S. centric in regulatory or other aspects. And that's one of the things we work hard at doing, is trying to make the exams relative to professional practice, not U.S. or Canadian regulations.
Well, that's where psychrometrics come into play, right? That's a super complex area to actually get fair questions. And
It's what I tell people. Before I was involved in exam development, I didn't know what a psychometrician was. Now I can almost spell it. But absolutely, that's the science of the testing. And it was amazing to understand how you write good questions and bad questions. And if it's multiple choice, how do you write one right answer and 3 wrong answers that are not so obvious that can fly by them. So,
as opposed to having one questionably right answer.
Right.
yes. So that's part of the rigor of what we do and what we try to accomplish in these exams and certifications.
So, Tom, could you describe a little bit in details about the newer credentials, such as the QEP and the EPI? How do individuals apply for these credentials?
So, the answer, like many things these days, you go to the web page. There's a application process, and we have an applications group at BGC that reviews those to make sure minimum requirements for taking the test are there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to understand the requirements so you know if you can meet them. And then it's just a matter of filling out the form and the application and references that are asked for and getting it to the staff. And the staff reviews them, and there's a lot of give and take with the applicants and the staff to get things clarified and make sure we have all the information.
Yeah, but overall, the staff is there to help you. So when applicants have questions, they're always happy to help and answer questions. So that's the great thing about the staff.
How many QEPs are there approximately?
About 500 or so, but the numbers are growing. We've been very happy to see that happening.
And what someone coming into this field, why would they go? What would be the purpose of similar to what we talked about with CIH? What is an individual that has a QEP? What type of area of expertise are they expected to exhibit?
Sure. So they usually typically have to have some kind of education, academic education in some kind of area of the environment or environmental education, and then they have to have 5 years of practice.
Okay.
And so typically that's air quality, water quality, environmental science management and policy, or I believe it's waste management.
Oh, and you have to have specific knowledge about all of those areas?
You don't actually, because the current QEP exam is set up into 4 distinct areas. So you can choose which pathway that you want to go on. But we're working right now on updating the QEP exam. So it's going to be a comprehensive exam, much like the CIH. So in fact, the CIH used to have specialty areas, and one of them was indoor air quality. But now it's a comprehensive exam. Same with the QEP, we're making a comprehensive exam, which is going to cover all of those areas. So you don't have to necessarily choose a specific track, but but there'll be questions that cover all areas.
Excellent. All right. I think that's a big advantage of having these credentials, is that you're in a position to see if I'm more of an emphasis on environmental protection than I am on industrial hygiene and safety. I can go for a different type of credential in that regard.
Absolutely.
So, gentlemen, I want to ask you about the BGC Awards. What are the deadlines for nominations, and can somebody self-nominate?
The answer is yes. It's a fairly new evolution for us to allow self-nominations. The award process, I hate to keep saying it, but again, you can find it on the webpage. There's a form that will come to be completed and sent to staff, and we have a nominations and award committee, or awards and recognition committee, that then processes those awards. And we have multiple awards for each certification area.
Yeah.
So,
CPPS is the newest, so I think we still only have one there, but we will develop those over time. It's hard to give a lifetime award for a certification that hasn't been around for that long.
Yeah, and just for your listeners, we've talked about the website. The website is gobgc.org.
And we'll make sure that goes up on the webpage with the webcast itself.
Right.
So you'll have that.
So I do have to interject too, because the self-nominating, how did that come about? I'm assuming you weren't getting enough nominations, or what drove that?
Since I've been on the nominating committee, we have the nominating committee is busy once a year for about 3 months. I'm sorry, we're talking awards, not
awards. Yeah.
We may come back to talk about board nominations, but I don't. It turns out it's a very common practice.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes. So Lori couldn't address.
Yeah,
that.
and I think what it is that a lot of people are doing some really fantastic things in their careers, but they may not be very well known. They may not have that large circle of people that can, nominate them. And so after some discussion, we thought, let's give them a chance too. So they get vetted by the committee. So they have to have, we have to demonstrate that it is they're doing something of value to the profession. So we said, okay, let's have some people who can self-nominate. And as Tom said, other professions do allow self-nominations as well.
Yeah, the committee did quite a bit of research and put together a big spreadsheet that showed how common this is now in professional societies.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it works.
Yep.
And what is the deadline again?
June
30th.
30th. We just had a
30th.
board meeting, so I was stuttering a little bit. We set a new deadline, June
And-
30th.
June 30th, and let's go for the awards. What are the awards that you're expecting to award this year?
All of them would be the
Right,
answer,
right,
but
but
what
I'm
are
not sure I
the
can.
categories?
Sure. I'll do my best at naming some of the
Yeah.
awards. So we have the QEP Annual Award for environmental practitioners. We have the I'm blanking on the name. We have the Impact Award for more like early career professionals in industrial hygiene, occupational health, and safety. And then we have the Lynn C. O'Donnell Lifetime Achievement Award for more seasoned practitioners in OEHS. And then we also have the again, I'm blanking out. It's an award for EHS auditors as well.
Okay. All right, and so
the Jim Ball
The
Award.
Jim Ball Award.
Yeah.
Jim Ball Award.
so those are the ones that you're looking to have nominees
Yes.
self-nominate or get other people to nominate them by June 30th.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
So yes, let's talk a little bit about how do you get on the board of directors? How do you get nominated for that?
So that's where I was going. Unfortunately, I answered the wrong question, but for board of directors, it is almost everywhere now. Boards rely on self-nominations because it's hard to find volunteers these days. And so the self-nominations, again, there's a form you complete. It's ask for information, a lot of information. And then the nominating committee goes through those, ranks them in terms of the attributes we look for, and then come up with a lesser slate of folks that have self-nominated. Then we do phone interviews, and then we get a slate depending on how many new board members we need. We have rotating board positions in various years, so some years we need 2, some years we need 4 or 5.
Yeah, this most recent year it was 5 new members.
5 new
Yes.
members. That's one of the great things about being at the AIHA conference and having an in-person board meeting. There was a lot of first-time real introductions with each other, but it was wonderful to be back here at the conference and have in-person meetings.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, it's the last 2 years have been tough for all organizations and all, the lack of in-person events. It's difficult to replicate that
Absolutely.
virtually. You just can't.
Yeah.
Can't do this.
Absolutely.
Nope, it was
Yeah.
great. And led to a very productive 2-day meeting.
Yep.
Forgot how tiring they can be, but it led to a very productive 2-day meeting.
Well, yeah, because you tend to have a lot of extracurricular activities too at an event when you're in person, as opposed to once you get off your webcam, you're pretty much going on to your day-to-day life.
That's true.
Yeah, we're moving from Cheetos to big cheese sandwiches.
Right. I just wanted to add one other thing about
Sure.
our board of directors is that when we go through the nomination process, we do look for certain characteristics in different years. So, for example, some years we might look for younger practitioners. Other years we might look for people who have academic experience. They're currently teaching at a university. Other years we might look at specific credential types like QEPs, EPIs, QEPs, CIHs, CPEA. So it kind of varies from year to year. But one of the things we try to accomplish is have that diversity of practice and diversity of experience. And that's really true, again, through all of the things we do at BGC.
Yeah, that's a very important thing for all organizations now, is to have that diversity, especially since about 3 years ago you changed the name from to what we have now, which is the Board for Global EHS Credentialing.
That's right.
And we included the word global in there. Could you guys describe exactly what's going on with that?
Well, I think, we're in the process of reviewing and updating all our exams. And doing that, we're doing reviews of the questions just to make sure that we have globally applicable certifications and they're not biased to U.S. regulations or EU regulations or other things. So we know we need to go there. There's lots of places in the world where there is no certification locally. And we know that that's an important thing for the practice, whatever subject area it is, and we need to try to make those exams available for that. So we're also looking at ways to have better exam access. We're looking at remote proctoring,
Right.
where you literally can take it at your kitchen table to make the delivery easy. Not everybody has access to a testing center, even in the U.S. So we're trying to make it easier to take the exams, and so that will facilitate, being able to offer these exams more globally.
That sounds great. So at the end of my questions, I was wondering if there were other things that you'd like to mention about BGC at this point?
No,
We could go on forever,
Yeah,
but
we
I
really
know we
could.
don't have the time.
No, we
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. I think BGC. Okay. As in my bio, I don't have any background in EHS or industrial hygiene, and I've been really impressed by the quality of the board, the dedication of the practitioners, and that was obvious from the very first AIHA conference that I ever went to. So I think they're doing a really great job and very dedicated bunch of professionals.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, the BGC's been an adventure since I came on the board. We have 2 more certifications, so that creates, it's kind of like rapid expansion in any business. It creates its own problems that we can easily get diverted by, but we are maintaining the rigor of what we do. We're getting the exams updated as we need to. And again, we have, since I've been on the nominating committee in 3 years, we haven't had trouble finding people to volunteer to be on the board, which is a good thing.
Absolutely.
So we have the right choices to allow us to get the diversity on the board that we need.
Sounds good. Well, again, like I mentioned, I really appreciate you two dropping by and talking with us today. And I'm on your board, so I will be meeting you guys again soon. So
maybe you should have put that admission up front at the end.
A disclaimer, right?
Why do I feel like the third wheel here?
You're the fourth wheel.
Maybe you should ask him if he has any more questions.
Do you have any more questions?
I actually don't, because I think you covered all the base questions that I wanted to hear. But it is obviously your credentials are recognized globally. And I've been in the industry, in the indoor environmental industry, since the mid '80s, and the CIH term is a preeminent term, no question.
Yeah. Well, actually, I want to add one thing to that comment, and that is that we have grown, we have added credentials, but actually those people who have those credentials came to BGC. We didn't ask them, and we weren't going around saying, hey, we want more credentials. They came to us because they were looking for new homes and they wanted a quality organization to house them. And so we were the first place they went. So we're really, really honored to have them and to add those new practitioners to our family.
Sounds great. Well, thank you again. We really appreciate you spending the time. And Bob, if you want to close
Tom,
it out?
thank you so very much.
Okay.
So we'll have continuing coverage here live from Nashville, Tennessee at the AIHCE Convention and Expo. I'm Bob Krell from Healthy Indoors, and again, being joined by my co-host of the Indoor Environment Show, Don Weeks, who is the president of the Indoor Environmental Quality Global Alliance. So stay tuned. We'll be coming back to you today shortly, and this afternoon and tomorrow, and until such time as you'll be tired of listening to us. And again, these if you're looking to see any of the recordings of these broadcasts, they're all going to be available on the Healthy Indoors online global community. We'll have you again, if you're interested in seeing that, go to global.healthyindoors.com and you can watch these live streams and watch the recordings later on.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you.
Wow, that was fun.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, see.